Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by Tucker Hazel, and we are here today for our review of WarioWare Get It Together. But before we do, you got to get it together and join the Backlog Banter experience. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and most importantly, join our Discord because we want to talk to you about WarioWare, Nintendo, and everything at all. So with those plugs out of the way, let's get into the video. You're going to see a cut because we actually recorded the intro at the end. That's why I did it so well. Tucker, I want you to start because my first question is only tangentially related to this game, which is, what is your experience with WarioWare to begin with?
None. We talked about that in one of our most highly viewed videos, our WarioWare Get It Together live reaction. I mentioned that I was a little bit confused on WarioWare because as someone entirely detached from the series, it's very hard to wrap your head around the concept of 5-second games being an engaging gameplay loop. And going into this, when I started up the game earlier today, I felt that for the first few worlds. There are a few things as the game progressed, as I got more into it, that totally proved me wrong. And I'm happy to say I had a great time with this game. I think the campaign is short, it could be longer, could be more substantial, but is fine for what it is. And externally, the game seems like a pretty solid package, though I would say on the whole it's pretty content light.
So I would disagree with you there. Having explored it a little bit more, we're probably
I have explored it quite a bit more.
Well, I think we should talk about that too then. Okay. But my thing is, coming from the perspective of someone who has played more WarioWare, having played Mega Micro games, having played a shit ton of DIY, a lot of gold, and WarioWare snapped on DIY on DSi. I'm one of 4 people who played that one. But the draw of WarioWare has always been its replayability, right?
Sure.
And something that I always found a little bit lacking was that replayability. And the reason being was once you mastered a micro game, you were done with it, right? It would pop up and, okay, I know what to do. I know the input. Boom. Speed it up. Boom. Bring it to the more complex version. Boom. I've got it. WarioWare Get It Together proved my biggest concern about the game wrong and doubled that replay value, which is the character system, which has never existed in the past WarioWare game. And my biggest concern going to this game was that it was going to rob the micro games of that variety. And it was going to make them instead about the characters. And what I think makes this game so successful, in my opinion, is that the characters for me are just a straight additive feature, right? And while not every character meshes perfectly with every micro game, I think that's also part of the fun. I think the characters and that dynamics is great.
Initially, getting used to the characters and realizing that some of them just flat out suck for some of the games is very frustrating. And I think it can lead to some unfair losses in terms of losing a hit point or whatever through the course of trying to get a bunch of stuff. And if you get bad RNG and a bad character lines up with a mini game that they're not good at, it can fuck you up. But I think the point of that, or that being an issue, is kind of washed away by the fact that once you're done with the campaign, you have such a large amount of characters, most of which are good. I would say there's about a third of them that there's very little reason to use them because they just mess with the pacing of each game. But you have so many that do work and are relatively similar in some ways, where that becomes a non-issue, especially if you are limiting yourself to a certain small crew with ones that do work. But sometimes it is fun to be like, oh shit, okay, I'm playing one of the characters that is just moving all the time and doing something stupid, and you have to entirely rework yourself in the moment, which is of course that gameplay loop is picking up with, okay, all right, and I throw myself in the shoes of this exact challenge with this gameplay mix up on it with this character, whatever. There's a lot of charm in that. And I think this game succeeds in that variety. And while I said initially that it was content light, I think that's just because obviously having no experience with WarioWare games of the past, this just feels like a set of 100
200. It's 200 plus. I don't know what the exact number is.
200 5-second games that they just throw into a bunch of different scenarios. And I have seen 90% of them, I think, going through the Gamepedia or whatever and checking it. There's still a few that I've never seen, but I've seen most of them. I've tried most of the ways that they have can be remixed. I tried the online mode. I played some of the multiplayer other game modes with my friends, which are very different, and I'm very glad that's included. But most of the content in this game is playing those exact levels over and over again, which for me makes it a little bit strange that is put out as this $50 Switch title. I feel like this, in my mind, from the scale of the game and the cut scenes and stuff like that, feels like a 3DS title. It feels like a downloadable title or something. And maybe that's just my inexperience with WarioWare, because I'm sure this is the largest, most robust WarioWare game yet. But when comparing it to the Switch's other offerings, that doesn't feel like the evolution of this series that I thought it would be.
So I disagree pretty fundamentally, but again, it comes from the perspective of having played the games in the past, right?
Yeah,
so I think it's interesting hearing your thoughts being completely new to the series, because I actually think that the central gimmick being those characters makes this as big of a revolution in the context of WarioWare as something like a Breath of the Wild was to Zelda.
It's entirely different scale wise,
right? On scales, I'm talking about the ways that core gameplay systems were changed, right?
Yeah.
Because in the past WarioWare games, they were always eclectic from a presentational standpoint, but they are mechanically very straight-laced. I think what this game is great at is bringing the zaniness of the WarioWare world to a mechanical level with the different characters. There's almost like a Mario Kart type of energy to this to me, where what the items are to a Mario Kart race or what the characters are to a WarioWare minigame.
Sure.
Sometimes they're going to fuck you over. Sometimes they're going to make things really easy, but they're always going to be unpredictable. They're always going to keep you engaged, right? And it really is I think, a pretty serious overhaul to that formula as a result. It makes the gameplay more hands-on. It makes it more dynamic. It makes it more wacky. And I really love that. And I have to say, I'm really impressed by the presentation of this package. I think that the story, being as light as it is still charming and conveyed in a pretty impressive way. And if we're going to think about value, I think that the polish of this package is a lot higher than the polish of a lot of games we've gotten recently, right?
Sure.
I mean, you compare this something to like a Mario Golf, and this leaps and bounds better. Yes. I think that the nature of the micro game makes this, in a lot of people's minds who might not enjoy WarioWare the way I do, makes it seem like it should be that budget title, like it should be that eShop title. Yeah. But I just think that it is such a radically different design philosophy that really is not implemented anywhere else in the industry. I really don't think there's many games, if any, that are like WarioWare. And I just think that this is a package that takes it to that next level in terms of the mechanics, and then puts it in the context of a package that feels very polished to me.
Yeah,
and it doesn't feel bare minimum. It could have just been still cutscenes that lead you into the story, right? And I think that's really, I think just those little extra levels is what makes this game so interesting to me.
Yeah, and from that presentation standpoint, I do agree that it's impressive and very eclectic, and that's both a pro and a con for me. I do think that there are some jarring elements of the UI and certain models and things not meshing well together. I actually don't like the character models that you play as. They're like 3D, but from certain angles they look 2D, but when they turn, it's really awkward. And I think that's a little bit unfortunate, because that hand-drawn 2D art style that is used in those not hand-drawn, but flat art style that is used in the cutscenes is phenomenal. It's so clean. Yeah. Everything pops. But when they put a tiny 3D spin on it, like Wario's muscles have a little bit of shading on them, which none of the other characters have. There's a little bit of out of place nature to that is a little bit jarring. I do think that on the whole, the presentation works because they're just throwing everything they can at you. Yeah. Okay, this level is for no reason very realistic. This level is for no reason a hand-drawn polar bear sitting on a golden toilet. And you're like, I don't know what the fuck is happening here. It doesn't matter. And as you get more into it, it's that doesn't matterness that just knocked away those complaints in my mind. I was having so much fun having things thrown at me and having a microgame end and having something entirely ridiculous happen, and a weird pose of Wario doing something really crazy. And I'm like, that's just fun. It's a stupid moment. It has quick moments of humor, visual humor that work so well. And you just are always kept on your toes, which is really quite fun.
No, I agree completely. Something I've come to really value as I've been playing more games, more different types of games, as I've spent a lot of time playing non-Nintendo games this year, especially with my Xbox, I've come to realize one of the things I love about Nintendo is that wackiness, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of their games in the modern era have begun to walk away from that. I think it's come more towards a like a Disney-esque wonder and imagination opposed to a weirdness. And that's totally fine by me. I think games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are not zany, but they are beautiful and interesting, right? But to me, there's something so compelling about weirdness from Nintendo. And this game is just that weirdness. You're talking about these art styles, but those are some of the tame ones. Sometimes you get like shitty colored pencil looking ones, right? Or you get the photorealism or whatever. And that is really refreshing to see, I think, especially in the Switch landscape, a lot of safe titles. I think that the ability to execute on this the way that it does for me personally checks a lot of boxes. And then the fact that they translated that into the mechanics also worked a lot for me too. So I guess what I'm curious about then is specifically that story mode. Were you satisfied by that?
Yes and no. I do think it's designed in a way that teaches you the mechanics at a nice pace. No level overstays its welcome. The challenge is pretty well escalated to the end, where things speed up quite a bit. You're always introduced to a new character that is given us the levels are given a spin to that particular character within that level. The levels are all themed around one sort of thing. My favorite being that Ashley is hungry, so all her levels are based around food. It's like, okay, that makes no fucking sense, but I love it. So from that regard, I think it's great. It being short is not a problem. And there is sort of like a false ending, and then it just gives you more harder levels, which is fine. I don't know why they had to add a false ending in there. It kind of feels a little weird, but on the whole, I am happy with it. The one thing I would say that I'm disappointed with, and is the main reason I, in my mind, consider it, this is like a 3DS downloadable title sort of thing, is a lot of the story that is not those in-level cutscenes is just the character models with text bubbles in front of the thing, which reminds me a lot of Super Mario 3D Land, which was just we're just going to put the character model doing some simple things, and that's going to get you to the next level. And I wish that there had been the budget to show the characters in that 2D animated style interacting with one another. I feel like they kind of used hey, they've been sucked into a game as a crutch to make it simplistic. Like, oh, this is retro style. Isn't it fun and simple because they were sucked into a game? But it kind of just makes it feel a little bit cheap from that presentational perspective. But then you shift into really high quality animated cutscenes. It's like, oh, okay, there is budget here. There is presentation value. It's a little bit rocky from that regard, but those are obviously very short. I think in the small amount of time that they stay around, they there's a tiny bit of personality each of the characters. One of my favorite touches being the fact that 18 Volt doesn't walk, so young Cricket pushes him around, or the characters that are always moving in those little cutscenes. But yeah, it's a mixed bag, but on the whole, I think that it's a solid, fun, quick time.
Yeah, I think the campaign is great. I think that it does a nice job of bringing players of any skill level along. I like that you can pay some of your points to keep going, for instance. I didn't do that until the very final boss, because the character who with the flood pack, is her name Penny, right?
Penny, yeah.
Oh
my god.
My mind simply doesn't understand that.
No, it was hard.
Yeah, but otherwise I never.
Oh, and did you play anything as Poyoro?
Yeah,
he sucks.
Well,
oh my god, that is uncontrollable in some levels.
See, I disagree, but I've also played a lot of Bird and Beans, which is what he comes from.
Okay.
For people who don't know, Bird and Beans was an unlockable game in Mega Micro Games, the first WarioWare, which became massively popular, and then it got a standalone DSiWare release, which is where I played a shit ton of it. That actually.
So you're familiar with that sort of style.
Yeah, and
control style.
he's also like the bonus crossover character in a sense, because he's not really part of WarioWare's cast. He's actually in the context of this game set up as the villain because Wario is trying to compete with his game. But what the fuck was I saying? Here's what I'm gonna say. I think that calling this a story mode is a little bit misleading.
Sure.
Because after you've beaten the game, this is still the crux of the game, at least if you're playing single player, because you need between like 10 and 20 cleared stages to clear a level when you're playing through it. But then you can go back in afterwards and
play for high score.
And you'll see new micro games. And one thing I'm not sure if you got to, you'll see the same micro games, but they have 2 or 3 phases of difficulty or just variety. So where you're going to see that stuff mostly is to the story mode when you run back through it. And I think the reason for the false ending is because effectively that's where the campaign ends. What is after that, those hotel stages are usually presented as just bonus modes in other WarioWare games.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think just from a usability standpoint, I would have liked just a menu I could pull up to select those levels from, because
having to travel around the world map.
I mean, the world map is small. I appreciate a world map and something like this.
Of course, but it is simplistic. It doesn't add a ton.
All it is flavor. But once I've beaten the game and I was trying to hop around, I would have liked that to be a little bit different. But I really have next to no issues with that. I really have next to no issues with this game, period. My one big complaint with the game, and keep in mind this is just my first day playing, I probably played 5 or 6 hours, is that the unlockables are not to the standard of what they used to be in the past games.
Sure. I'd like your comparison to that, because as someone just coming into this and spending 45 minutes or so after I beat the campaign messing around this other stuff and other menus and trying to see what it is that they're trying to pull me along, compel me to play more of this game with, it's pretty weak. It feels like a lot of fluff. It's got the gotcha element of collectible little, basically the food things from from Smash Ultimate that you feed to your characters to level them up for what I don't know, to get the check off the achievements, I guess. But it's a lot of play the same games to get more coins, to get the random thing to feed to the characters for what end, to check off the achievements. I don't know. It feels like a lot of fluff in the overall structure of the game, but of course that's all optional. I mean, playing the game's optional, but it does feel like there's no concrete end game or real drive, because that stuff doesn't really matter.
So for me, the gold standard of unlockables, keep in mind, I listed out the games I've played, so I haven't played all of them. Are you frozen?
No,
okay, you're back. Maybe it was on my end. Point is, I think gold is the gold standard for unlockables. But also things like the past games had this too, but you were unlocking things that are a little bit more substantive. You're unlocking, little trophies or collectibles or whatever, but you're also unlocking things like bird and beans, right? And so one of my first questions when I saw Poyoro, how the fuck you say his name, is I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna get like a remastered modern bird and beans, because man, that'd be so fun. I can't wait to unlock that. But the gacha stuff is just for these things to feed to your characters. There's almost like a Tomodachi life system where certain things the characters will like or dislike. And I haven't explored that yet. But I wish those unlockables had those games or something a little bit more substantive. I think would have done a lot for me personally. But something I've been thinking about just on a macro level, right, is that a lot of these progression systems anyway are arbitrary. Like, there's a big controversy right now that, Halo Infinite is not going to have per match experience game. But the point of playing Halo is to have fun playing Halo, right? And so for me, the point of playing WarioWare is to have fun chasing your high scores in WarioWare. And that's what the game presents you. And I think the online mode is going to give that a lot of life. They're going to have weekly challenges, right? And all of that. So I miss the unlockables, but at the same time, the unlockables were always superfluous. Yeah. And I think that as a multiplayer experience, the variety in that variety pack is huge.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of it.
For a single player, there is a lot of different stages to chase high scores on. And with the new character gimmick, there is a lot more variety in the gameplay as you chase those high scores. So I tweeted this morning that I think this might be my favorite entry in the series.
It's mine too.
And I think it definitely is. I'm not sure it's the best, but I think it's my favorite. I think this is a modernization of WarioWare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can't really add any more. I think we kind of touched on almost everything in the game. I think that online mode could be cool if we actually see it supported. Yeah. There are leaderboards. There is incentives to get high scores. You can unlock some prizes. You get into a certain percentage of the scores or whatever. And I think that's cool. I don't know if I will ever come back to this, because while I will be dabbling in some more of the side modes, because I'd like to see all this game has to offer. Yeah. I don't know if that really compels me too much, because I'm not a competitive person in that way. And I don't even know if high score chasing for just the campaign will be anything for my liking. I do want to see all the micro games, so I guess I will play the game until I've done that. But I don't know. This is something we'll have to check in a while in the future. But
BLB, I mean, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, I played the Wario Gold Cup or whatever this week, so this is what I thought. Yeah, but I'm very happy I gave this a try. WarioWare is now significantly more interesting to me. I kind of do want to see what the games are like without the character gimmick, because I have nothing to compare it to. I thought this was pretty cool, but I think the ways that other systems use the gimmicks of those systems is a little more interesting to me conceptually, rather than just moving a character around on the screen, which is what you do in every video game. But I have nothing to compare it to. So obviously I'll report back in the future on BLB if I do try another one of the WarioWare games. But as on a whole, this first time, had a blast with it. Only spent 3.5 hours, which is not very long, but I'm satisfied with that short run time, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that this is a game that succeeds in bite-sized chunks, right?
Yeah.
And so I am going to be consistently playing this game, but I'm going to be consistently playing it in 15 and 20-minute bursts here or there, right? And I think that's where this game is going to succeed the best. The two things. First of all, my biggest issue in the context of the game are those unlockables. My biggest issue in terms of the game on a what could have been level is the lack of online co-op. Because bringing co-op to WarioWare in the way that they have is very interesting. And that's something I didn't experience today. I probably, might coerce my roommate into playing some of it with me.
Of my playtime.
What'd you think?
In co-op. I think honestly, it doesn't change the game much. It takes your focus away from what you're doing, because you have to deal with someone else, and sometimes you can mess each other up very easily.
Cool.
Which we found. Cool. But it doesn't change the formatting of anything. It doesn't change any of the micro games. Are all the exact same. But you can play basically everything except for the online mode, I think, in multiplayer, which is nice. And there is a huge suite of 1 to 4 player other games, which are co-op high score based, and there's some that are competitive. I didn't play all of them. I played about 5 of them out of 15 or something like that, but there's a lot of variety there, and that definitely does add a huge chunk of possibility to this game, because I just had a couple friends and we tried a couple of the modes, and I don't know if we'll ever go back to that. I don't really play game night games with my friends where we come over and play co-op stuff, but it was fun. Well, it lasted for the 30 minutes we played it.
Yeah, I want to do that. I'm not sure if my roommate really gives a fuck about WarioWare enough to play it with me a lot. I was under the impression from Backlog Banter's intern Abby that this game had online co-op.
Did he lie to you?
Which he told me erroneously. So I'm gonna have to dock his pay. He already doesn't get paid, so now he's gonna have to pay us. That's what I think. But no, I would have loved to see that there. I would have bought a Jean a copy. We would have played it a ton while she's abroad now. But when she comes back,
God. Imagine imagine the connection problems if that game did not have a rock solid online.
Yes.
And I think that's probably why they didn't go for it. If you can barely move in a Smash Brothers match, imagine having a 5-second micro game to deal with.
Sure.
I think that's probably the issue. And that's all on Nintendo for not having better net code.
Right.
Not with anything of the structure of the game, because I would love to dick around in co-op or competitive WarioWare with you. I feel like that would probably be the most fun I could possibly have with this game, is playing WarioWare with someone who really enjoys WarioWare.
Yeah.
For Tanner, and stick around after we finish for Tanner's review of this game.
Yes.
Enjoyed it quite a bit as his first time playing WarioWare. He was getting into the characters. We had this joke that 18 Volt is the greatest character in the game, and we just kept bringing that up. Like, okay, well, we don't want 18 Volt for this, but we don't want to make the game too easy on ourselves. Like, he's too cool for us. But yeah.
Yes.
I would love it. I would have loved it to have online. Yeah.
I'd be very curious to see how Mario Party Superstars does online, because that is the first party game to release with heavy online post the new net code that Nintendo implemented, which is fucking beautiful in Rise, Monster Hunter Rise. And I've actually heard Mario Golf Super Rush is really stable online too. So maybe we've turned a corner. I would have liked to see it here, even if it ran haphazardly. Having it at least, I think, would have been important. But you know how it is. But Tucker, anything else you want to say about WarioWare?
Nope.
Well,
no, not really.
Yeah, I think
being honest.
I think I've about exhausted it too. I have to say this is probably my favorite first party Nintendo game in quite some time. Which is both
not a ton of competition.
Right, both a testament to the game itself, which I think is genuinely great, and a testament to the fact that I think Nintendo's partners have really been carrying the Switch's exclusive library recently.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to get out of here. We'll be back, maybe fucking talk about Nintendo Direct next week. That's kind of the one straight.
That'd be awesome.
I got a lot of thoughts on Direct. Whether it happens or not, we're gonna have a discussion, because I've got thoughts either way. But Tucker, we're gonna get out of here. Thank you for watching us. Like I said, like, subscribe, ring the bell, all of that shit. Tucker, take us out with a Wario impression.
Wario is number one. Wah, ah, ah, ah.
Oh, hang on, I can't hear you. Hey, how's it going?
Are you here to review WarioWare?
I played a little bit of WarioWare.
Oh, did you?
I did. It was fun. I enjoyed my time playing WarioWare.
Well, that's our review. I guess I don't need Tucker here. His fucking lazy ass.
Exactly. I like that all the characters had different little abilities. I thought that was really fun.
I agree.
Who's your favorite character, Abram?
I think my favorite character might be Mona.
Really? Which one? Oh, that's the one she's always moving.
No, that's Mona. I meant Ashley.
Oh. Ashley is oh Christ.